Tonight, the stomach-churning plunge on global markets. The massive meltdown, but the man who triggered it, unfazed.
The markets are going to boom, the stock is going to boom, the country is going to boom.
Fresh recession fears and the financial blowback. Canada's counterpunch.
Canada will be responding by matching the U.S. approach.
The major automaker that's already started layoffs and pausing production in Windsor.
The entire North American auto industry would grind to a halt within 7 to 10 days, and that's pretty scary.
Plus, the verdict is in for two top organizers of the so-called Freedom Trucker Convoy. And the surprise snap.
After they're done with their shoot, I then pick Preston up, and I'm like, what did you just say?
The famous photo bomber that left a family speechless.
CTV National News with Omar Sachedina.
Good evening. At the end of a turbulent day on the markets, which delivered a decisive statement on Donald Trump's escalated trade war. U.S. stocks plunging in their worst one-day sell-off since 2020, the start of the pandemic. $2 trillion wiped out. CTV's John Venevelle-Rao starts us off with the steep sell-off.
As soon as the markets opened, investors rendered their verdict on Trump's tariffs, sending stocks plunging, the kind of tailspin not seen since the early days of the pandemic.
Trump's tariff sell-off. Stocks, as you know by now, of course, deeply red.
America's Dow dropping more than 1,600 points. The tech-heavy NASDAQ losing nearly 6% of its value, while Toronto's main index fell nearly 4%, as investors worry tariffs will lead to inflation and an economic slowdown.
This is akin to what we saw back in 1930. I'm not going to say it's going to trigger a global depression. I'm not going that far, but this is big stuff with lots of unknowns.
Stocks were down across the globe in Europe and Asia. And after Trump slapped steep tariffs on countries that make clothing like China and Vietnam, many retailers fell, including Canadian-based Aritzia and Lululemon, both with stores in the U.S. Lululemon stock was down nearly 10%, Aritzia a whopping 20%. Oil prices saw their steepest dive in 3 years amid worries about global growth. This as the U.S. president late today on Air Force One seemed unfazed by the market mayhem.
I think our markets are going to boom. We've got to give it a little chance, but we're taking in jobs and we're taking in industry and we're taking in trillions of dollars.
With some now wondering how much market pain it might take for Trump to reverse course. As for the U.S. dollar, it took a real hit today, and that brought the loonie up by a penny to above 71 cents U.S. John Venevelle-Rao, CTV News, Toronto.
As you heard, Donald Trump dug in today, insisting there would be a major turnaround while fears of an economic slowdown and higher inflation intensified. CTV's Washington Bureau Chief Joey Malbin on the promises and the backlash.
The U.S. president headed to his Miami Gulf resort, downplaying any panic about his tariffs that went off like an economic bomb. Trump says he thinks it's going well.
It was an operation, like when a patient gets operated on. The markets are going to boom, the stock is going to boom, the country is going to boom, and the rest of the world wants to see, is there any way they can make a deal?
Dealing with the fallout, Trump's team blanketed the airwaves, defending the president's strategy.
We have manufacturing disappearing. That is not working for Americans. We've got to take this country in a different direction.
To anyone on Wall Street this morning, I would say trust in President Trump.
Trump declared a national emergency, sidestepping Congress, slapping a 10% minimum tariff on all trading partners and steeper levies on nations deemed worst offenders, taxing imports, driving up the cost on groceries, wine, computers, and clothing. And Trump's advisors say the tariffs are non-negotiable.
I don't think there's any chance that President Trump's going to back off his tariffs. This is the reordering of global trade.
Americans are already feeling the squeeze.
It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when we will have to raise prices.
Car prices increasing, food, those are things that are going to impact people in our lower income communities.
Economic alarm bells going off everywhere.
We will have a recession because of what Trump is doing. What president walks mindlessly into a recession?
And it seems no one was spared from Trump's tariffs, even places where no one lives. Just penguins, slapped with a 10% tariff.
The president says every country has called him, but says that he's in the driver's seat as his tariff war escalates. Omar?
All right, Joy, thank you. And joining us now is BNN Bloomberg's Amanda Lang. Amanda, Donald Trump's tariff pitch was to boost American jobs and investment, but the market, at least today, didn't buy it. What will it take for a bounce back, and what are the chances of a global recession?
The chances of a recession, Omar, went up dramatically. If these tariffs stay in place, then certainly you're seeing reductions in the expectations for growth everywhere. But it's a big if, and duration is one thing that economists are watching really closely. If they stay on for 6 months or fewer, then that's not as bad. If they stay on, if this is a new permanent trading regime, then that will really dampen growth. And that's what we're waiting for now is, again, more uncertainty. How long will this last?
Yeah, for many Canadians who saw the massive drops today, it's understandably causing a lot of anxiety. What do they need to know about this environment?
Nobody should really trade into this kind of panic if they can help it. That's a big if. Everybody's situation is different, Omar. Looking away, if you're young and you have 20 years of investing and saving ahead of you, is probably the right thing to do. If you're older, don't panic, but it's time to actually think about where you're invested, because this could be with us for a while. So it isn't actually a time to put your head in the sand either.
All right, good advice, Amanda. Thank you for this tonight. And a major warning from the Prime Minister today, who said the tariff war will, quote, rupture the global economy. Mark Carney hit back against Trump's auto tariffs on Canada today. CTV's Judy Trin on the new countermeasures and the damage already done.
Caught in the crosshairs of a trade war started by Donald Trump, this Windsor auto plant is putting production on pause.
The president's actions will reverberate here in Canada and across the world.
To counter, the Prime Minister announced that Canada would impose 25% tariffs on all vehicles made in the U.S., but duties won't be collected on Canadian and Mexican parts in American cars. Revenue from retaliatory tariffs will be used to support workers.
Around $8 billion before remission will go directly to our auto workers and the companies affected by those tariffs.
As the stock markets plunged, Trump remained unapologetic.
Remember, there are no tariffs if you build your plant or you build your product, make your product in the U.S.
Carney says the government will develop a framework to cushion auto producers from tariffs if they keep their companies in Canada. Meanwhile, his main rival unveiled a strategy to boost domestic sales and production. Only about 9% of vehicles Canadians buy are made here.
A new Conservative government will eliminate the federal sales tax on Canadian-made automobiles.
The NDP also want to remove the GST from cars. All three leaders want more vehicles made in Canada.
Donald Trump's approach is like an arsonist who's setting fire not to just our economy, but his own economy as well.
Trump has now hit Canada with 25% tariffs on autos, steel, and aluminum that it sells to the U.S., and 10% on potash.
We got the best of a bad deal, which in my opinion is still totally unacceptable. The only thing that's acceptable is zero tariffs.
All of the premiers are very supportive of the measured response and also supportive of whatever it is that we need to do in order to support the auto workers.
Now back on the campaign trail, Carney continues to warn that Trump isn't finished, that the president has signaled he wants to impose tariffs on other sectors, such as agriculture, pharmaceuticals, semiconductors, and lumber. Judy Trin, CTV News, Montreal.
Anxiety is growing for auto workers on both sides of the border as the industry gears up for a potentially prolonged trade war. Here's CTV's Heather Wright with more on the impact in Canada and beyond.
The decision to shut down the Stellantis plant in Windsor, Ontario was made in less than 4 hours, according to the local union, a direct result of the auto tariffs announced yesterday by the White House.
This is not good. This is bad news, and it's not over with.
The plant, which makes minivans and muscle cars, will close for at least 2 weeks starting Monday, with 3,600 Canadian workers temporarily laid off. A plant in Mexico will also stop production, as will factories in Michigan and Indiana that make parts, putting 900 Americans out of work.
It's not pretty. I don't think he realizes the impact he's got on even his people.
While the Trump administration says tariffs on Canadian-assembled autos will be reduced based on how much of the vehicle was made in America, it will still result in a double-digit surcharge, adding thousands to the price of a vehicle.
The math doesn't work when you're making cars in 6 to 7% profit margins.
Today, Canada imposed counter-auto tariffs, essentially a mirror of what Donald Trump announced yesterday, with exceptions made for auto parts and made-in-Mexico components. Among the vehicles to be hit the hardest by the Canadian tariffs, Teslas. The Tesla Model Y and Model 3 topped last year's Made in America Auto Index, with a total domestic content of 87.5%. In Oshawa, Ontario, the vast majority of the Chevy Silverados made here are bound for the United States. General Motors says no changes have been made to production, but they are watching the situation closely. The longer the tariffs last, the more worrisome for workers.
Industry experts who we rely on and give us their reports are saying that the entire North American auto industry would grind to a halt within 7 to 10 days, and that's pretty scary.
The shutdown of the Stellantis plant will also impact dozens of parts manufacturers in both Ontario and the United States, which supply the plant, affecting an estimated 7,000 to 10,000 jobs. Heather Wright, CTV News, Oshawa, Ontario.
Threats of retaliation and urgent calls for talks were among the global reactions to Donald Trump's tariffs.
Europe has everything it needs to make it through the storm. We are in this together. If you take on one of us, you take on all of us.
The European Union says it is ready to respond, but would prefer to negotiate with the United States.
La décision qui a été annoncée cette nuit est une décision brutale et infondée.
Calling the decision brutal and unfounded, French President Emmanuel Macron called on European countries to suspend investments in the U.S. And Beijing accused the U.S. of bullying and promised to take action to safeguard its interests. On the campaign trail today, at least 3 people needed medical attention at a crowded rally for Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre in Oshawa, Ontario.
Medic, we need a medic over there. Oh, we need a medic over there.
The Conservative Party says one was a serious medical incident. 2 others became lightheaded or fainted. Both the Conservatives and the Liberals have dropped candidates from the race less than 2 weeks in. CTV's Abigail Beeman now on who's out and why.
Pierre Poilievre shakes hands with workers in Kingston as the party shakes candidates across the country. In 2 days, Conservatives fired 4 candidates over various allegations, mainly past comments the party deemed unacceptable. The latest was Don Patel in Toronto. The party forwarded a social media post saying Patel supported this comment about deporting nonsense people to India for Prime Minister Modi to take care of. CTV News reached out to Patel for comment.
Our vetting process is stronger than all the other parties. That's why we have a zero tolerance for anyone who acts unacceptably.
Poilievre instead pointed fingers at the Liberals and how much longer it took for former candidate Paul Chang to resign after comments about handing over an opponent to the Chinese government to collect a bounty. There have been other Liberals replaced too. In Calgary last week, a party spokesperson said certain information was not disclosed to them and Thomas Keeper is no longer a candidate.
The vetting that is being done is being done very last minute. When you're dealing with an early election, you see more of this, and I think you're going to see it in all the parties.
Hi, Mr. Patterson. Conservative campaign staffers tried to stop CTV News from speaking to local Kingston candidate Brian Patterson, who has faced criticism about his past involvement with a church that performed conversion therapy.
Are you still a member of the church today?
No, I was very clear when this happened a number of years ago that I do not support conversion therapy. I actually seconded a city council motion supporting the ban on conversion therapy.
All parties have until Monday afternoon to confirm candidates for the ballot. Abigail Beeman, CTV News, Oshawa, Ontario.
2 organizers of the so-called Freedom Convoy were found not guilty of most charges against them today.
Welcome, Chris.
How are you? Chris Barber was greeted by supporters in Ottawa. He and Tamara Leach were, however, found guilty of mischief for their roles in organizing a mass protest in Ottawa in 2022. The judge said the evidence showed the pair routinely encouraged people to join or remain at the protest, knowing the impact it was having on people and businesses. And just as Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu touched down in Hungary for a 4-day visit, The country revealed it would begin the process of withdrawing from the International Criminal Court, the world's only permanent global tribunal for war crimes and genocide. As a member of the ICC, Hungary would have been obligated to arrest Netanyahu when he visited after a warrant was issued last November for alleged war crimes in Gaza, charges Netanyahu rejects. The ICC also issued warrants for 3 Hamas leaders who have since been killed. Hungary's president claims the court is politicized. And South Korean President Yoon Suk-yeol has officially been removed from office by the country's highest court. He briefly declared martial law last December, sparking mass protests and political turmoil. Parliament also voted to impeach him. Coming up.
This prepares you and it enlightens your mind.
What's behind the push for new tech in Canadian prisons? Tonight, we look at the use of new technology by inmates inside Canada's federal prisons and how that could improve their chances of reintegration on the outside. W5's John Woodward explains.
And today I'd like to take you for my fireside chat.
A fireside chat at the water's edge in Jasper National Park, a place inmates in Canadian prisons would never be able to reach. But they're experiencing being there now thanks to virtual reality.
So this is VR.
Teacher Andy Stubbert shows off the technology in a classroom inside Bath Institution, a federal medium security prison near the shores of Lake Ontario.
It gives them the opportunity to escape into an environment that they wouldn't normally be able to participate in.
An escape without escaping. Much of the content is education about Indigenous culture, but there's job training too. Classes include operating heavy equipment like cranes.
I could go to a construction site and look for it myself, but the people here in this classroom, they don't have that option.
Absolutely, yeah.
It is almost like a 360-degree view. Like everywhere you turn your head, it's there.
This inmate, Bill, took those VR classes, a part of the high school courses he started taking here in his 60s.
When I was 17, I knew it all, right? So I didn't have to go to school. So.
No high school diploma, a big factor in why inmates like Bill end up here. He thinks the courses could help him get a job when he gets out.
What was it that made you want to come back and learn?
Yeah, this prepares you and it enlightens your mind.
The virtual reality is part of a suite of new technology, including giving inmates internet access for the first time, officially. Unofficially, prisoners are already smuggling in cell phones by the thousands to get unrestricted internet access. And Bill admits there's a potential for misuse.
If there's a window for someone to try and do something illegal, they're going to do it, right? In this place, there are people that are just have criminal minds, or else they wouldn't be here.
Security top of mind for corrections, says Chief Information Officer Stéphane Blanchard.
It's supervised access at all times.
What kind of skills would you hope inmates could learn from virtual reality?
We hope that it's going to be skills that they can use in real life once they are released. Skills like construction skills, mechanical skills, that kind of stuff, but stuff they can apply to real life as soon as they're released.
It's just a pilot program. It may be a first in Canada. It's already being done in the U.S. Here in Colorado, prisoners have been given VR tools as a way to practice everyday skills like laundry. One prison saw a dramatic reduction of violent incidents after a week of sessions.
So these are some of the employment readiness VR that guys can take a look at.
Teacher Andy Stubbert sees the potential.
For us, I think it's a bit of a tip of the iceberg, so it's something that education is going to embrace.
He hopes when inmates see scenes like this in real life, they're ready.
W5's John Woodward. Still ahead.
She scrolled back and we got it!
A family never pictured having this photo. With all the news coming out of Washington this week, there's a remarkable moment that you might have missed. This is a shot of Portia Moore's 2 beautiful children during cherry blossom season. She was focused on getting the perfect shot when her husband said this.
My husband's like,
that's Obama. I didn't know he was saying that. I'm like, yeah, whatever. I'm making sure I'm looking at Preston right now. After they're done with their shoot, I then pick Preston up and I'm like, what did you just say? He's like, that's Obama. I was like, what?
Barack Obama casually walking behind young Belle and Preston. He was just out for a stroll when the presidential photobomb happened. Obama later commenting on the viral moment, writing, "My bad for stepping into the shot." And tree-dwelling celebrities from California's Eagle Cam have new names. Meet Sunny and Gizmo, the surviving eaglets of the popular pair Jackie and Shadow, whose eggs hatched in early March. And still ahead, what voters are saying in the city that's the birthplace of Confederation. Tonight's Voter Snapshot brings us to a small city with a big place in Canada's history. Charlottetown, Prince Edward Island, where CTV's Sarah Plowman is getting a taste of what people want from their future government.
The largest city in Canada's smallest province prides itself as the birthplace of Confederation, a friendly tourist destination that long experienced a brain drain, but has been growing, largely from immigration. To find out what's on voters' minds, we headed to Cows to get the scoop.
What matters to you most this election?
How we deal with Trump.
That's the top issue for you?
The only issue.
Hopefully somebody gets in that actually cares about the working class and makes living more affordable here in Canada.
The biggest thing for me is affordable childcare. You know, being a young parent, childcare is a huge thing.
For Cows itself, the top concern is U.S. relations.
Sovereignty is on the ballot all of a sudden, which is shocking and upsetting.
We came here before President Trump announced Canada would escape the brunt of U.S. tariffs. The company doesn't export a lot to the States, but its CEO had concerns.
I think like the threat of tariffs are damaging in themselves.
It's not just voters who have priorities for the federal government, so do municipalities, including here in Charlottetown.
Housing is the issue.
The mayor wants more homes built to help working families and marginalized populations.
We're adding more units to our inventory, but we need more housing. Right now, the cost of rentals, I don't know how people do it.
Back at the ice cream shop, voters are engaged.
Very much engaged. Yeah, I would say definitely it matters for everyone.
Thank you. Talk of the future of this country from the city where it started. Sarah Plowman, CTV News, Charlottetown.
And that is a snapshot of this Thursday. Heather will be here tomorrow. Hope you can join her. For all of us at CTV National News, thank you for watching and good night.